As a nurse on the cancer ward of a large hospital, I've seen my fair share of death and sadness. I work overnights in a hospital that holds thousands of patients on 10 floors. When I first started working, the head nurse that I was shadowing said that the hospital was haunted and that many nurses, doctors, and patients have experienced unexplainable things throughout the years. But I didn't really think much of it at the time. I didn't have an opinion one way or another on the paranormal. My first few weeks alone overnight were somewhat rocky. I was getting used to the equipment and hospital procedures. But eventually I settled into my own routine. I began to experience odd things about a month into my employment, and it's escalated since. The first night I experienced something, I was sitting at the computer station outside one of my male patient's rooms, entering his vitals and his meds into his chart. It was after midnight, so in general the hallways were quiet. All of my patients were either asleep or about to be. As I was entering information into my computer, I saw my water bottle move a few inches on the desktop. I stopped what I was doing and put my full attention on the bottle. But of course, it didn't budge once I was fully giving it my focus. Somehow, probably because I didn't want to think about it being true, I rationalized it. I told myself I must have moved it somehow, maybe by typing too fast, making the keyboard hit the desk extra hard. Either way, I shook it off and went about my nightly duties. A few nights later, when I was restocking supplies in one of the rooms that discharged earlier, I heard a noise coming from the closet. I walked over, slowly opened the door, and let out a gasp as all the linens and extra pillows were now moved from the top shelf, where they were neatly stacked by me hours earlier, to the floor of the closet. But even more odd was the positioning. The 2 spare pillows from the top shelf were neatly placed on top of the blankets. It was as if someone was making a bed in the closet. Could it have been coincidental? Yes, but also I spent 10 minutes rearranging the pillows and blankets back on top and making them fall, and they never fell like that again. Both of these occurrences could technically be explained away, though the chances of them being from my own actions were super slim. But what I experienced just a few weeks ago, the incident that made me share my story, cannot be explained away. I've tried. I was giving a patient a late-night sponge bath and gown change, as she was a late transfer over to us. I filled up the wash bin with warm, soapy water, grabbed a couple clean washcloths, and proceeded to wash her up and dry her off. About midway through getting her gown on, the patient popped her head through, stared directly ahead, and said, "Okay, I'll tell her." To which I said, "Tell who? What, dear?" I was used to the ramblings of patients on heavy medications, but this was different. She wasn't on anything too heavy. "Gracie says thanks for all the extra warm blankets," my patient replied. Thankfully, I wasn't holding the wash bin, because I dropped the old gown in my hand when I heard what she had to say. Gracie was the name of the patient who passed away days earlier in this room on one of my shifts. She was a patient that I had bonded with because she was a frequent flyer, as we called repeat patients. She was always cold, as cancer had taken a toll on her body and she was paper thin. I was always bringing her a new warm blanket when I came in to bring her meds or check her vitals. We took confidentiality really serious here in our hospital, so I knew nothing had been left behind with Gracie's information on it. And this patient was new to us. She had just recently found out she had cancer and had collapsed during her first round of chemo. She was just staying a day or two for fluids and extra monitoring. She would have no way to know who Gracie was. The rest of my shift that evening, I was emotional, as you can imagine. I tried thinking of some way, anyway, that the current patient could know Gracie's name, but there wasn't. I told my coworkers that evening, and they shared some of their encounters with me, which have included seeing shadows in patient rooms hours or days after they pass, hearing whispers in empty rooms and misplaced items. And now I'm fully aware of the unexplainable things that happen here. I will never question a story one of my coworkers tells again, because what I experienced was something I can never forget. Rest in peace, Gracie. Thank you for being a great patient. Thank you, Kara, for sharing your deeply personal work story. I used to work in a hospital just doing housekeeping, and I know myself and my coworkers experience the unexplainable as well. Hospitals are full of death and sadness, so it stands to reason there's a lot of paranormal in them. Well, friends, if any of you have a paranormal work or hospital story, send them to the address in the description below. I'd love to include them in an upcoming video. Don't forget to like this one. It really helps tell YouTube I'm here. Subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a story. See you tomorrow, friends.